Today, the SJRA sent out an email giving an update on the seasonal lake program. So what does this mean? Well, I think they're finally getting some of the letters that people are sending. They're getting the emails, and they're starting to feel some of the heat that you guys are actually putting on them. So I just kind of wanted to do a quick overview of what was in the letter and look at some of the things in it. So I won't bore you with all the details, but I've kind of pulled out some of the main passages in it. So if you look, they basically go over what the program is again. But the interesting thing to me is you see they're using the word temporary here, then you see the word seasonal, annual, and then seasonal twice annually. Well, the question is this temporary? Is it seasonal? Is it annual? What does that mean? And look, I'm not an English scholar, but when I look at this and I look at the placement of the words, right? So what they say here is in 2020, February 2020, they will consider renewing the current flood mitigation strategy of temporarily lowering Lake Conroe during the spring and the fall rainy seasons. Well, if you look at the placement of temporarily, if this was really a temporary program, it would be up here. It would say the board of directors will consider renewing the temporary flood mitigation strategy instead of the flood mitigation strategy of temporarily lowering the lake on a seasonal basis annually. So I think that this is done intentionally to kind of, it's a subterfuge. They're trying to confuse and placate everybody into thinking that this is a temporary program. So I went and looked at Webster's dictionary and said, what does temporary actually mean? Well, there's two definitions that they list: lasting for a limited time or one serving for a limited time. So if you look at this initially, you would say that they're not honoring the meaning of the word temporary because one serving for a limited time. So further down, they have a Q&A section, and one of the questions is this a permanent program? Well, it's a little confusing, their answer here. It says no, seasonal lowering is a temporary flood mitigation strategy. But then you see the key words here: must be reconsidered each year. So what that really means, at least how I interpret this, is every year they're going to vote seasonally to temporarily lower your lake. So yeah, their decision is temporary, meaning that it's a year-to-year decision, but they're permanently going to vote and every year decide how much to drop your lake. Now look, they mention in here dredging of the lower West Fork, and you'll hear from people, oh, the dredging is not completed, the dredging is not completed. Well, I guess that depends on whose definition of complete you use. So they were given money by FEMA to remove debris that was put in there from Harvey. All of that money has currently been spent, and the dredges are currently sitting idle because there are no allocated funds, there is no contract in place to do any additional dredging down there. So if they're saying it's temporary until the dredging is complete, but wait a minute, nobody's paying for any dredging and nobody's doing any dredging right now. So we're waiting for, the sky to fall here. There's not actually a plan in place. And let's be realistic here. They've had 3 years to get this done. This will be when this lowering occurs. It'll be August 2020. That's 3 years from Harvey, and they haven't finished some dredging. I mean, let's be realistic. So what am I going to do? Well, I think that what we need to do is we need to kind of force them into a situation where they have to tell us what exactly do they mean by temporary. Under what circumstances will the vote no longer be held? Look, our goal here is not just to win this vote this year or to get them to give up some ground. The goal is that they no longer vote every year to lower the lake. That's what we want to be temporary. We want them to vote this year so that no longer do they lower the lake. The vote shouldn't be, do we lower the lake this year? The vote should be, do we stop lowering the lake permanently? Before 2018, there was never an inkling of them voting every year to lower the lake. So look, I think we need to force them into saying, what are the permanent solutions that they are referring to? They talk about dredging, but nobody's actually dredging right now. The dredging money has all been spent. They've had 3 years to do this, and we've been subsidizing it using money out of our pockets. And I think we need to force them to basically say, look, if you're going to call it temporary, then you need to tell us what exactly you mean by temporary. Well, thanks for your time, and I'd appreciate it if you guys could also send some additional letters asking for that.